Let's talk a little bit about permissions. Permissions as how we interact with Google search and, of course, AI search now. Seems like everybody is still using artificial intelligence, kind of like they use Google, which is very interesting, but it's also what I think would probably be normal at this point in time. People aren't really wrapping their minds around where artificial intelligence is and the potentiality of it. So let's explore a couple things. I remember I was born in 69. So there was a time when there wasn't really anything and we had to wait for things. Well, there was things, but it was much more human, a human of existence back then. Payphones, well, I was very, very young. They started to come out. I remember my mom had an old, what was considered at the time an antique payphone, which took dimes, nickels, and quarters, all three variations of that currency. We had it in the kitchen, and the bottom part actually was like a piggy bank of sorts because you would put money, it would function like a normal phone. And when people came over, they were, of course, very impressed and had a lot to say about it. But that particular phone, when I was a kid, I got into that thing and I was able to jimmy the lock and steal the change. Yeah. And then I couldn't get it locked again because, once you get something unlocked, trying to be fancy, trying to lock it back, you have to be fancy again. And usually you can't duplicate the original fancy. So I used wood glue. And I don't know if I ever even told them. Anyway, so that was that part of it. But just talking about that, the technology even of an answering machine. In fact, on the block I grew up on, we had a shared party line. So all the neighbors on the block, 7 houses in a small town in New Mexico, they shared the same line. So if you wanted to get a phone call, you had to wait. Then the lines got split. Of course, Mountain Bell Mountain Bell with AT&T. Was it still AT&T? I guess it was. American Telephone and Telegraph, they came in. But I mean, that technology back then was pretty spectacular. Call waiting on the same line where you heard a beep of somebody calling in, that was pretty spectacular as well. And then having the ability to record voices with an answering machine using a cassette tape, that was great. Then it went to micro cassette, then it went digital. There was a lot of things there. And looking at that as we move forward, there used to take time for us to get answers to things. And that's the point of today's show. The library or that crappy encyclopedia set that your parents seem to have, God knows where they bought it, always missing a couple volumes. Who knows where they went, especially if you had siblings. And trying to do research on that, it seemed like it was antiquated and dated. So then that next step is you take what you need to look up and you go to the library and you go in, you grab that card catalog. Grab the card catalog. It was a massive box type structure with a really heavy wood, maybe walnut or oak. I'm not sure what it was, but beautiful. The drawers slid out real nice depending on, what kind of library you had access to. And in those particular drawers, kind of rectangular, maybe 3 inches by 5 inches, were these cards in there. And those cards had information by alphabetical order regarding the book title and maybe subject. I don't remember exactly how they were organized, but you would go in there with a particular subject. Let's say you're looking up smallpox, and you would go up and look under S and find smallpox. Then in that drawer or the section of that drawer, there'd be a lot of information about books pertaining to smallpox. Then you would write it down. There were golf pencils there. There were little scratch pieces of paper in the library. You would write down the address of the book, and then you would walk in the library to the location you would find the book. Yeah. I know this stuff, at least for my generation, maybe a couple more, but the new people probably have never seen it and probably maybe never will unless they want to take that historical walk. So you go and you look in the section and maybe all the books are there. Maybe none of them are there. Maybe if you're running some kind of a term paper that other kids at your high school were assigned and you waited, you might get to the library and there might be nothing there for you. And then good luck with that, because at least in my hometown, there was not more than one library. Where I live here in Southern California, there's quite a few. I'm not sure how many people actually go to the library to check out books, but it's a thing. So getting that information, it took time. It wasn't immediate gratification. Now, we've seen the world change into that. And when the internet boom started back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you have all the fiber being laid, all the infrastructure, the speeds getting better, the computers being able to handle that traffic online, the bandwidth's getting better, and then people are able to communicate more. And this is way prior to artificial intelligence. Now, even at that time, artificial intelligence was being worked on behind the scenes. Started probably in the 50s, and you had people back then, Alan Turing and these other very great scientists were imagining a concept for a greater than human intelligence, or at least human level intelligence in a machine. And look at us today. Here we are, 2026. We're closing out July 2026. Here we are. Yeah. You've been watching the channel. You know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you probably heard it on the news. Oh my gosh, it's something to be scared of and it's going to end everything. Yes, I tongue in cheek, not even tongue in cheek, just being normal. We don't know where it's going to go. I try to be that internal optimist. I'm not trying to run on the freeway and, light myself on fire and cut myself with razor blades, but I don't know where this is potentially going to go any more than I think anybody at the top. Now, I guess the people that discover something new might be able to extrapolate a little bit. Oh, this is going to be the one. This is what's going to push us into that world of either super abundance or super dystopia. But yeah, that's that pendulum. That's going to go either way. And we'll have to watch. And the change itself is going to be incredibly fast. Let's talk about information, though, before we get all the way into the AI rant. You used to go to Ask Jeeves and Yahoo search and AOL search to ask a question, and it would give you resources that it found online. It wouldn't answer the question for you. That's the difference. It would give you the resources. Now, how you got into the placement to be one of the resources offered, that's going to depend on a lot of different variables. Google in the day made that the best. Or they sold it the best, I should say. I don't know if it was the best. I do know that it was the most powerful and most used search engine ever. And it still is, I think, in a lot of ways. Now, it might have some of its power stripped from it by the usage of other large language models to do searching, because that's starting to become a thing. But when it first rolled out and it got popular, the Sergey Brin and the other cat, Larry Page, they really made it what it is today. And it's still a very strong search engine, yet it's not so much giving you the results the way they were. The way they were is you got pages, whether it was Yahoo search, Ask Jeeves, AOL search, the other ones back in the day, Lycos search, I think might have had something. When you watch the older movies, I was watching one a couple of days ago, and when they went on the large box to do a search, it's so good. It just brings back the memories. The delay was there. And then the websites that it would recommend, some of them were just complete BS, because the people that were building the website were using what's called black hat strategies. In the Wild Wild West movies, that's where that comes from. Usually the villain's wearing a black hat, the good guy's wearing a white hat. Black hat SEO, black hat search engine optimization strategies, meaning that they're doing something kind of not right or unethical, unmoral, or outright illegal to try to game the search engine into showing that particular resource at the top part of the SERPs. The SERPs, SERP, search engine result pages, so it populates up at the top. Now, of course, the joke back then was, if you want to hide a dead body, you might want to do it on the second page of Google, because nobody went to the second page. It was all first page. Now, more people are finding themselves on the second page because the first page is laden with nonsense. You have all of the ads that are being paid for, the sponsored, and that's the money, right? That's the money shot there, where these search engines, especially Google, has made just tons. Facebook meta campaigns for Instagram and Facebook, I run those for particular clients. Those are also gold, depending on the client, depending on the venue, whether it's a service, whether it's a product. Those things are able to be actually worked out to see if those campaigns will make money. And it's not that complicated. It's just something that takes time, grade, knowledge, expertise, and putting all that together. But it does work. And, if you're interested in something like that, I can definitely help. But going back to Google and going back to the other campaigns out there, when you were searching, to be able to be on the top part of that search, it wasn't easy. Google refined the verification process, refined the algorithm, which is another fancy word for program, in order to remove the junk, the crap, the black hat. And they were very good at it. They enlisted the help of bots, and bots would go out and crawl websites and look at their structure, look at the architecture, look at the secrets that you don't see on that actual page from the human eye, what's behind the page, what kind of gaming is going on. At the very beginning, you could keyword stuff, which you would take one keyword, Santa Clarita real estate, for example, in a local market. In our local market, that's hard to score for. It's very expensive to be able to pay for even advertising space corresponding to that four-letter phrase, Santa Clarita real estate. So what you could do back in the day, if you were the black hat type, I heard this from a friend, but you could take Santa Clarita real estate and you could write a blog post of content. Back then it was WordPress and some of the other venues. That's kind of where WordPress got born. WordPress, more of a family thing. I'm going on vacation. Here's my little log of my trip with my family. But it became a very much business heavy entity because content is king. And today content is still king. So you would write the blog post. Below it, you would put Santa Clarita real estate, 500 or 1,000 times. Just repeat, blah, 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 blah. And just one right after another. That for a while worked very well, and your page would hit page one, position one, because you were willing to play that black hat game when maybe other people weren't aware of it or didn't know. So this goes way back for me in that process. Now, Google giving you those best results, of course, they got smart to that. AOL Search got smart to that. Yahoo Search, Lycos, Ask Jeeves, all of those other networks out there that were being used for primarily search. And of course, they vaulted into other things, emails and this and that, mapping. But they were primarily gauged with search. They learned the lesson. They figured it out. But Google, I think, figured it out best, or at least they sold it best. And there's a couple different venues there. I think because of the adoption of Google, it was amazing. But that falls in with their data mining to be able to help businesses in their Google pay-per-click strategy. That was the moneymaker. That was when the machine started to do cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching all along. And that was the very, very amazing place for Google to be. And of course, off of that foundation, they're able to build this massive AI technology and that infrastructure. Plus, they have a lot of data, a lot of human data, human-centric data showing how we do things. How do we search for things? What are we saying? What are we asking? What are the questions? That stuff's pure gold for somebody that's using it to sell stuff back to us. Just pure gold. But it used to be that's how those searches would work. So we would see those at the top. And then now it's laden, like I said, with ads. And there's a lot of other things. You got a 3-pack as far as the mapping goes, where places are located, depending on how your computer's set up or what the system's feeding you. And that just goes on. So these different things are getting smarter and better. But instead of now you asking Google to potentially give you an answer to this particular question, who's the top real estate agent in Santa Clarita, now you're going to see a lot of other stuff on Google, including a recommendation by artificial intelligence. And that is what people are using ChatGPT for, which is not Google. It's a different entity. ChatGPT is owned and operated by OpenAI, and part of that share, I guess, is Microsoft, but a lot of other people have pieces of that. Started as a nonprofit at the beginning and then changed its outlook and structure to for-profit. There's a lot to unpack there, but we don't need to get into that here. And I definitely don't have the bandwidth to do that. So, because there's a lot of things that depended on that. So then you look at the other large language model companies. You have Anthropic. They have Claude. That's awesome. OpenAI has Grok. Grok's making a comeback. That's awesome. So there's multiple people on the field, which I think for us folks, that's a good place to be. Multiple competitors. Now, are they all secretly like attorneys, high-fiving it and talking about their billable hours behind closed doors so nobody else is there to watch it and be offended by it? Don't know. I'm not up at that. Still trying to get health insurance, so I don't know what's happening on that upper part of the realm, but it's interesting to watch. And now, of course, they're talking about the danger, how dangerous these models are. And they're doing it from an aspect that seems a little, human beings, we like the dangerous. We don't want to use some church mouse type product. We want to use the pit bull type product. And by saying that there's a lot of danger wrapped around it, and it's we're not sure why it does what it does, and we need some kind of government regulation. We could go down a whole road about this government regulation thing, creating a moat So other smaller companies that might have super innovation, super great ideas will never catch it, because once the government becomes involved, it's only the players at the top that are going to have the ability to continue at full speed. And even if the government tries to regulate, that's not going to change these companies. They're going to still be able to move forward at full speed, because for the government to hire people or peoples with the brain power and the ability to go in someplace and find exactly what they're doing and what it even means, good luck. And the people at the top of the companies don't even know how it does the things it does either. So there's that. But now when we go to AI, now we're asking it a question. Now it's giving us an answer. It's not giving us the way things we got before. We're having less required of us to be able to make determinations. And it depends on how you're wired. Maybe you're one that's like, you don't want to accept what it's spitting out as being the answer. Santa Clarita, best real estate Santa Clarita agent, Connor MacIvor. Maybe that's me. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you're looking for something else, somebody else, some other use case that you can figure out. And that's great. But the systems themselves, they're formulated to provide for you answers. And how are those answers tabulated and formulated and then exposed to you? It's exposed in text, but how it's come up with, that's interesting. There's probably bias. Yeah. You take artificial intelligence and you have a doctor, scratch artificial intelligence. You have a doctor give a diagnosis. And I guess that 70, 80% accuracy, depending on the type, but I think these are very round numbers. I've heard them spoken and written down as far as a doctor being able to make, a medical doctor being able to make a diagnosis. 70, 80%. Okay, well, maybe not great, but definitely, it's safer flying in a plane, but still maybe not too bad. So then you would think you attach AI to the doctor and then that would go up incredibly. Actually, it doesn't. And the reason why it doesn't, because there's bias on the doctor's part. Not that AI isn't biased. We'll talk about that in a minute, but bias on the doctor's part. So the doctor's still pushing, but then you let AI, you train the AI, narrow AI and understanding everything about cancer, looking at images. Every image that was cancer wasn't cancer. You put all that trillions of pages, billions, I'm not sure how many pages, but it's going to be more than 5. You stick that into the cancer-driven AI research agent, and now you show him this radiological image of something. A regular human doctor, 9 times out of 10, might not nail it at all or see it. AI, over 90-something% is going to get it every time when AI does it alone. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad for human beings. It sucks for the people that are usually the ones that read those scans. I'm sure none of them are excited about giving the wrong diagnosis. So maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's not as big of a deal as a person that drives a truck being replaced by a robot that drives a truck. Maybe that's a much bigger deal. I came up with this today because I was thinking to myself, we're not seeing the things how we used to see them. We're not now having to listen to people like we used to when we were growing up, at least in my generation, to ask questions about things. In my generation, if you were sitting around the dinner table and somebody said, I heard a term today related to whiskey, and it was called Blue Label. Blue Label. I wonder what that means. And then everybody starts to ponder. I wonder what that means. And if nobody at the table had ever heard of Blue Label by Johnny Walker and doesn't understand that that's their premium version of whiskey, it would go unanswered. There was no other resource. There was nowhere to go at 8:30 at night as you're having a cocktail and trying to understand the greater meaning of life, and somebody pops off with Johnny or Blue Label. They don't know what that is. That is something that's been solved. But what problems does that cause? Does it cause any problems? I know people that are out there driving around their vehicles. Most of them are using map applications. And of course, it's not making them more lazy. It's helping them get places faster to avoid traffic. If you're in the middle of nowhere, maybe it's not a big deal. But when you're in a big city like Los Angeles here, traffic's everything. It's the difference between a 30-minute ride and a 3-hour ride. And if you can circumvent the 3-hour ride, of course, if everybody's using mapping, the mapping is going to send everybody on these alternate routes and potentially monitor everyone. It probably has that baked into its programming, its algorithm, if you will. But if you're not using it, relying on memory, yeah, you might be great at getting to a place, but you might be doing yourself a disservice if time is there. But then in my brain, I very much try to refuse using that technology to get anywhere in Los Angeles because I've worked all 4 bureaus with the LAPD and I pretty much know where everything is. You give me an address, I can pretty much find it. Now, maybe not a small side street, but if I get an intersection coordinates, Sherman Way and Van Nuys, or Sepulveda and Ventura, I can get you there from anywhere. But a lot of people use the mapping stuff, right? And it makes it a little bit easier. Phone numbers. Do you have any phone numbers memorized? Maybe yours to give out to people. But other than that, yeah, that's a lost ability as well. Remembering phone numbers. I still have to look stuff up. And it's just a different world now. This video is more intended to talk about how we're now being fed things. We're being told what the best is without us having to crawl through. And I guess the Google search engine, when it was giving you results, there was the first position, second position, third position. Yeah, of course, that's kind of the same. It's telling you. But I think there was more investigation done then than there is now, because now people are just being fed the answer, and the people that are accepting that AI is all time, all eternal, all amazing, all knowing, well, they're going to just accept what it is. I think that's a problem, and I think we should pull back from that a little bit, maybe a lot. And also, be safe out there. We'll see you in the next one. I do appreciate you watching. See you tomorrow. Take care. I'm Connor. Bye. Be well.